The second foundational principle to approaching prenatal fitness is knowing how to use our breath to manage pressure to increase the stabilization for our spine to decrease the risk of injury, while also not overwhelming our pelvic floor and our core during pregnancy. When we breathe, we take an inhale and the diaphragm is going to move down to increase pressure down into the abdominal cavity. And so this is going to be a state of tension. It's important to note that inhalation does not mean relaxation. So you inhale to push the diaphragm down, which is going to increase pressure within the abdominal cavity. So you should feel the belly and the back and the pelvic floor all load and lengthen and move down. After you've taken your inhale, we have two options depending on the demand. If you're just sitting and relaxing or you're focusing on pelvic floor relaxation, for example, we're just going to focus to exhale and release or to relax. And what is going to happen is that stretch and that gathering of energy that we had with the inhalation is going to allow the pelvic floor, the abdominal, and the back to just recoil back to their resting position. Now, if I was lifting weights or if I had some exertion going on, I would want to exhale to contract within my abdominal wall, core, and pelvic floor to help counter the increase in pressure with that exertion. And so inhales are down and out. We're increasing pressure within the abdominal cavity to help stabilize the spine. And then exhales can either be relaxed to recoil in or exhale to lift up and in to counter that increase in pressure with muscular force. So you can imagine this balloon being your abdominal cavity. When we inhale, we're increasing pressure within the entirety of this cavity. And so the outside is stretching and is gathering tension and energy. And then when I release, I can either exhale to contract to lift up and in, or I can exhale to just let go. Which again, you can see that recoil is just bringing everything up and in. So it's important to remember that inhales are not relaxation. It's a state of tension and stretching and lengthening of the abdominal cavity and the pelvic floor. The exhale is where we can either relax, depending on the demand, or we can exhale to contract to counter that increase in pressure. And so we can use external props to help us feel diaphragmatic breathing. The first thing is you can sit down on a soft object. This is the deflated Pilates ball, and you can put this on the perineum so you can feel the pelvic floor move down into it. And then you can take a resistance band or a strap or anything to give some feedback against the rib cage, and you can put it against the rib cage. So I have it around the sides and the back of my body. And then we want to pay attention to our position. Are we more arched in our back already here? Are we in a more neutral position, or are we more rounded as we sit? Ideally, we're in this more neutral position or a more rounded position as we're focusing on breathing. And so I have feedback with the band. I'm going to inhale into the band. So I want to feel my rib cage push into the band on the side and the back. And then I'm going to exhale and just relax. So I'm taking a big inhale and I'm trying to target most of my breath into the back side of my body. So I want to feel all back here expand with every inhale. And then exhale, I'm just going to let go. So my rib cage expands, and then I just release. The next thing that I can do to try to bring in some of the contraction of the pelvic floor with my exhalation as I prep to do movements like squatting or lifting weights is I can exhale to lift up and in. So I'm going to find my little bit of rounding or my neutral position. I'm going to focus on inhaling into the back side of my body, almost as if the back half of my pelvic floor, where like my anus is expanding and lengthening and stretching. So I find my little round, big inhale, target to the back side of my body. And then when I exhale, I'm going to lift up the front half of my pelvic floor and focus on trying to bring my rib cage and pelvis closer together on the front side. So big inhale into my back. Exhale to lift the front. Big inhale into the back. Exhale to lift the front. So we can use our external props to help us feel our inhalations a lot more. So you're going to feel your rib cage expand into your band or your strap and feel your pelvic floor move down into the ball whenever we inhale. So that's where we're finding the length and the stretching. And then when we're targeting our breath, we want to focus on the inhales to the back side of our body. So feeling like our back expanding, the back half of our pelvic floor stretching and loading. And then exhale, think the front half is lifting up as if we're trying to pull our rib cage and pelvis closer together with our exhalations. The reason that we want to target most of our inhalation to the back side of our body is one, a lot of us tend to favor this more arched or extended position. So there's a lot more compression on the back side of the spine and also the back half of the pelvic floor. So this is first going to bring some length and expansion to the back side of our body to help us find a more neutral position. The second reason is our back and the back half of our pelvic floor has a lot more structural support to it. So when we increase pressure to the back side of our body, there's a lot more tissue integrity back there to help withstand that increase in pressure, as opposed to breathing more to the front side of our body where the tissue is already more stretched and compromised. And then when we exhale, since we tend to favor a more extended position, this is going to help pull us into a more neutral position. And the front half of our pelvic floor tends to have more length to it. Our abdominal wall tends to have more length to it. And so by shortening it with a contraction, one helps to increase the density of these tissues so that they can then withstand more pressure from the increase in pressure from your activity. And so you can try breathing in multiple positions, such as a seated position, standing, all fours, to help experiment with the movement of your pelvic floor and coordinating it with the rest of your breath. And so key things to remember is we're going to inhale down and out to feel the diaphragm move down, and it's going to increase pressure throughout the entirety of the abdominal cavity, but targeting most of it to the back side of your body. And then when we exhale, we can either exhale to relax, and we're just going to release tension, or we're going to exhale to lift up and in and contract if we have increased demand, such as exercising. And when we exhale, we're going to focus most of the contraction towards the front side of the pelvic floor and the abdominal wall, so we can increase the density of this tissue that tends to be a little bit more compromised during pregnancy, so I can better withstand increases in pressure.